Hello, my son bought this old sporterized Enfield from a family for a reasonable price since it had no collector's value and had been poorly cared for. I failed to take many photos of it before starting this project, but it had the components to make a fairly nice sporting rifle. The look up at the serial number shows this action was built by Winchester in 1918. The thing is still in pretty good shape for a 102-year-old piece of well-used hardware. It would be interesting to know if it actually saw service in World War I.
Say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there.
Somewhere along the way, by the looks of the stock, it was probably sporterized in the early 1960s, and according to the family, had been used by a now deceased member to hunt for years in southwest Montana, or so the story is told. Just so we're all clear here, guys, we're not gunsmiths and are complete amateurs when it comes to working on firearms. However, we had another old Eddystone Model 1917 Enfield that was in better shape, and we successfully refinished the stock, added a scope, and found that it was a reasonably accurate, powerful hunting rifle. After verifying this gun functioned and shot reasonably well, we disassembled it and began the long process of restoration. We sent the action to a local gunsmith to have scope bases installed. Finding the appropriate bases was problematic, and fortunately we had the other Enfield to refer to. The bases were Weaver bases and had been modified a bit to fit the action. While the action was at the gunsmith, the stock was sanded. Some photos here show in a bit more detail the condition of the stock. From experienced eyes, we could tell it had been a good piece of walnut at one time, and would probably show its niceness once again. We won't go into all the details of refinishing the stock here, as it is covered by many others. We simply use Lynn Speed for the final finish, which is old school, but has served this family well. Other guns. Once the action was back from the smithies, it was completely stripped down and each part removed. I had to find a video on how to get the safety mechanism apart, as it is a bit tricky. Once it was apart, each piece was cleaned using Birchwood Casey glue and rust remover. The parts were then laboriously cleaned and sanded to allow for a good surface to re-blue. There are plenty of other videos out there showing the cold bluing process, so we won't waste a bunch of time with that. The action itself was a tedious process to get cleaned up. My son's Dremel tool was a godsend in this process. Some of the grinding marks from the original modification of the action were still present, and we gently removed many of them from the surface to give a better final product.
So you can see this, how this Dremel works on this thing. Now, I've sanded this before with going down to 400 grit, and it makes it this kind of dull color. So if you take a Dremel with the stainless steel wire on it, look how that polishes that up.
As you can see in some of these photos, the barrel had some serious pits on it, most likely from sitting in a gun case in a closet for decades. Since I'm a lazy schmuck, we needed a new method to work on the barrel instead of the hand seesawing of emery back and forth over the barrel's surface.
We made this driver for our sandpaper. We glued emery cloth together end to end in order to polish this barrel. You can see the pitting. If you were to do this by hand, it would take you a really long time to do. So we came up with this haywire scheme to do like this. Put your drill in here, and away you go.
We simply just took the ends of the emery paper and used a Gorilla Glue to glue the ends together, and then held them with some furniture clamp in order to make it stick together.
Built a one of these loops with this 400 paper, but when we went to use it, the paper's not strong enough. The other is emery. So we're having to do this by hand today.
For some of the worst pitting, we took the fine wheel on the Dremel and just touched the surface of the area to rough it up a bit and remove the very top layer of steel. Yes, this may reduce the accuracy of the barrel, but we know this knowing that someday in the future we may go ahead and put a custom barrel on it.
We have a Birchwood Casey cleaner degreaser that we're going to use after we've polished it all up to clean the barrel off, get all the oil and fingerprints and dirt crap off of it before we apply the bluing.
I'll just cover a short section of the bluing application here.
I tend to leave it on a little bit longer, rinse it off, do another application later. All right, so we applied a second application of it, and now we'll rinse it off again.
Everything was blued except for the bolt. I had to leave the country again for work, so I reassembled the rifle just for storage. The bolt will be polished up and the handle section blued to match the action. We'll finish it up when I get stateside again in a few months, and I'll take some really good photos of it so you all can see how it turned out in the end.
One shot.